that seems like a new media, quote unquote, but they're just replicating a kind of online version of old media where it feels like a version of Fox News, but just on YouTube.
I think the disappointing thing, one of the cool things about alternative media was supposed to be that it like freed you up to be independent and to give you a perspective that didn't exist on mainstream media. But like you said, it's basically just become, I don't know if you say a shadow of, or a copy of, or a distorted mutation of what the mainstream media is. I think I've been on multiple shows now where I've asked a conservative, what are some like substantive issues that you disagree with Donald Trump on?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Crickets. The quietest I've ever heard it in my entire life is being on set and asking somebody that question. It's like,
Now, I've been saying this for years, and it's actually been a big focus of my channel, calling out propaganda, right? Left-wing and right-wing media is demonstrably propaganda. If your news media has an ideological prefix, that means it's propaganda, right? Because the news doesn't have an ideology. Truth doesn't have an ideology, right? If I'm a progressive, that should have no relevance on my news media coverage, right? Because if I'm a professional journalist, I know how to separate my personal biases and feelings and focus on the facts and what's happening. But that is not what's happening. What you have is left-wing propaganda channels versus right-wing propaganda channels. The one thing that I would disagree with on what this guy's saying is he's saying that new media has now become, when has it ever been anything but a replica of mainstream media? What has been the argument that I've been making for years? I've literally for years been saying that all independent media is you have these people who look at mainstream media and they look at what's working and how they're making money, right? They look at the business model and they multiply what they're doing times 10, right? That's independent media, right? So you watch a channel like MSNBC, right? What are they doing that's working for them? They have been pandering to the ideology of their audience, right? They have a liberal audience. They pander to the audience, right? That audience loves to hear, Trump did this and Trump did that and Republicans did this and right-wingers did this, and not so much about what Democrats are doing, what the left is doing, right? That was a very profitable model for them. So you have someone like a Brian Tyler Cohen. What does he do? Exactly the same thing, but even more partisan. Whereas MSNBC, willing on occasion to actually call out or go after Democrats, not so much with Brian Tyler Cohen is literally, from a business model perspective, a more extreme version of mainstream media. The same partisanship, the same bias, the same unwillingness to call truth to power when it's your side, right? When it's your side, it's softball, whatever. When it's the other side, it's all aggressive, right? That's what we saw from mainstream media, but not so overt, right? You literally have in independent media people who every single video is against Trump. And I know that's what some hack would describe all of left-wing media, but that's not what left-wing media does, right? But you have this guy, Christo, whatever, he's not even an American, Canadian guy. Almost, I would say 98% of the videos is, look what Trump did. And a lot of times the titles are lies. He'll say, Trump punched somebody in the face and then nothing like that happened, right? Mainstream media would never do that. Can you imagine MSNBC literally, and again, I know hacks would say that's what they do. That's not what they do. They don't, every single video on MSNBC is not about Trump, right? If you watch right-wing media, they would want you to believe that. But go on MSNBC's channel right now and look at all their videos and see if literally every video is about Trump. Go on Christo's channel. I don't know what he calls it. He keeps changing his name. I mean, the guy's such a scammer, hack, partisan, propagandist. Every video will literally be, like, he's literally the way right-wing media describes left-wing media. He actually is that. The cartoonish, like, super partisan, everything is just like Trump, Trump, Trump. He actually does that. MSNBC obviously loves that type of content and leans on it, but nowhere near the level that you're going to see in independent media, right? And the thing is, people in this country, we lack critical thinking, and it's so easy for people to get caught up in, you see mainstream media not covering certain things, right? And then you see an independent channel covering that thing, and then you're like, oh, they're better. But you don't zoom out and look at the overall picture. And it's like, if all you watched was your favorite independent media channel versus all you watched is, and I don't know why, I know why. We always talk about CNN and something. They're like the worst, right? So let's look at something better in mainstream media. So like ABC, right? I have problems with all of mainstream media. I think mainstream media in this country is garbage. But independent media is far worse for all the same reasons. The things that make mainstream media bad, it's worse in independent media. Because now you take a model of, anything for views. If you don't get views, you don't get money. So you say stuff in a way that gets you more views. You take that same model and you give it to somebody who's accountable to no one. There's no board. There's no legal department. There's no FCC breathing on your neck, right? You don't have all this levels of management and you could get fired. No one's firing Tim Pool. No one's firing Brian Tyler Cohen, right? No one is firing these YouTubers. So they can do and say anything they want. So the stuff that is off the limits for even mainstream media, like even mainstream media has limits. We've seen people get fired. Unfortunately, they're so bad. We've seen people get fired, get rehired, but we see people get fired. No one is firing a YouTuber. Why on earth? And it's just, again, lack of critical thinking. Why would people think that it would be a better model to have for-profit news media with no accountability? So mainstream media, again, if you're a cartoonish hack, you believe that they have no limits and anything goes, that is not true. That's demonstrably not true. Ask Chris Cuomo. He's a perfect example of this because he did so much and got away with it. But even him, there was a line he crossed, and they kicked him out. No one's kicking out Tim Pool. No one's kicking out Brian Tyler Cohen. Why on earth would random individuals happen to be like Jesus? Right? That you think that they're philanthropists or something? They're running businesses. What would you expect from any business without accountability? Imagine if you had a store in your neighborhood. I don't care what they're selling, right? Groceries, electronics, furniture. And imagine if there was no accountability. They could just do whatever they want to do, false advertisements, treat the customers like garbage or whatever, as long as whatever they were doing was attracting people to come in and buy their stuff. That was the only standard, right? If people are buying, everything's good. So a customer goes in and is a little bit rude, and they get punched in the face by one of the workers, and nothing happens. No lawsuits. That person doesn't get fired. What kind of store would that be, regardless of what business? Everybody needs accountability. And if you're in the news media business, where sensationalism sells, partisanship sells, pandering sells, who is going to hold you accountable? So why on earth would mainstream media that has some level of accountability, very low, but some level of accountability, why on earth would independent media where there's no accountability be better? I mean, that was an obvious thing from the beginning. And again, they didn't become anything. They were this from the beginning. They were always a replica of mainstream media. This is why everyone in independent media that you hear, I mean, they've been doing it for years, but at this point, people are starting to wake up finally, catching up to me. And you see how things work, right? I'm the one who was right on this for years, right? But because, and this is why, again, I'm a perfect example of why they do what they do. Right? If you are raw truth like me, if you're not ideological like me, your channel will always be small. This can never work as a business, which is why they choose to pander and the partisanship, because that works. That's the business model that made millions of dollars in mainstream media, and that's what they're trying to replicate in independent media, right? All the while, they keep talking about how mainstream media is so bad. I'm gonna say it right now. Anyone in independent media who is still harping on this mainstream media, I go to the mainstream media, anybody who's still saying that, you gotta question who you're listening to. I'm gonna tell you straight up. Because either they're clueless, not to get it even now after all these years, or they're dishonest. And it's a whole gimmick. Like, that's one of my biggest things with Breaking Points, man. They love this mainstream media is so evil. There's nothing evil about mainstream media. It's for-profit media that's the problem. If you're doing news media for profit, that is the problem. Because you're not accountable to being honest, right? You are trying to make a profit, right? And in order to make a profit, you've got to keep the content entertaining. And a lot of times the truth is boring. Hence, the Debate Me channel, one of the most boring channels in the political space, right? Because I don't pander to ideology, right? I tell people uncomfortable truths. Conservatives subscribe to me because they see me calling out the left or whatever, and then I call the right and they're gone. Left-wingers subscribe to me because they see me calling out the right or Trump or whatever, and then I call out, same thing, right? People come in, they love to see their ideas validated, right? If I'm a progressive, I want to watch progressive media. I don't want to hear the news. I want to hear progressive news, right? Somebody tell me progressivism works and we're the best and da-da-da-da, and left is best and blue hearts, right? Make you feel like you're part of something. That's what sells, which is why that's what they deliver, because they're doing for-profit media. The devil is not mainstream. The devil is profit, for-profit media. News media, like other things, should be isolated from the profit incentives. There's certain things that we should look at. Like, imagine if the police department were profit-based. Imagine if the fire department was profit-based. I mean, we see what happens when medical, right? When our healthcare is profit-based, right? News media should be in a similar category. These are essential services. They should be delivered in a non-profit manner, so that, because it's crucial that people know the truth about what's happening in this country, right? News media should not be entertainment. It should be something, a service where people are being informed about what's really happening in the country, what's really happening in our government. But that's not what's happening, because these news media folks are for profit. Doesn't matter mainstream or independent. If profit is what's keeping you afloat, then you're going to be incentivized to do what's profitable. And what's profitable is entertainment, is pandering, is propaganda. The truth, not so much. Not saying that these guys aren't telling the truth at all. Get a little bit of truth here, a little bit of truth there. But essentially, they need to keep things sexy and interesting, right? And probably 1% of the population have the personality where they are so entertaining that they could talk about anything, any perspective, and people love watching it, right? That's like 1%. For everybody else, that includes YouTubers with millions of subscribers, you got to rely on what works. And what works is entertainment and pandering. It's just, I think it's a similar thing in the movie making business, right? I don't think the percentages are that extreme, but the amount of people that have the creativity come up with an original, engaging storyline, right? Very small percentage. So what does that mean? For everybody else, you got to rely on big names, right? Got to have big actors. big actors in your movie, so people come just because of the name. You got to rely on doing a part 2, part 3, right? You have a franchise, Iron Man. It's basically a brand, right? You do an Iron Man movie, people are gonna come in, Iron Man fans. You revive some old TV, whatever, right? Sex, right? Beautiful women, boobs, right? Explosions, things blowing up, whatever, right? If you're not in that small group of people who are creative enough to come up with original storylines, then you use sex and violence and big names. In the news media, you use pandering, propaganda, and entertainment. And that's what you see in mainstream media, and 10 times worse. Independent media is not special. So stop listening to independent media people telling you about how they're so special when they're talking about their competition, right? It's a dying competition, but that's who they compete with. There's a lot of people who, it just comes with cable and it's on there, whatever, right? But if you're a YouTuber, you need people to discover you, to find you, and then actually subscribe to you. Because even if they watch your video and like it, they don't subscribe, they maybe never see you again, right? So as desperate as you think mainstream media might be for attention and trying to get views and engagement, how do you think independent media feels? Like if you're CNN and you're just by default on people's TV who have cable, right? You're in malls and stores all over. Do you think you're as incentivized to just lean in on the propaganda and bias and whatever as someone who is just, like, imagine if I decided that I wanted to do this as like a business, right? And I didn't have any integrity, so I decided to go propaganda. I'm gonna just make this a left-wing channel. I'm talking about Trump every day and left is best and blue hearts. Imagine if I decided to go and do something like that. If I didn't have any integrity at all and I wanted to do what a lot of these guys are doing, I'm gonna become a progressive news channel. I'm gonna be, team blue hearts. You think that I'm going to do better than what mainstream media does at the risk of my business, right? If there's someone who's very popular on the left, you think I'm gonna go in on them on a regular basis, calling them out if they need to be called out, knowing that a ton of my subscribers love this person and will unsubscribe and say I'm a hack and I'm a right winger or whatever? You think I'm gonna do that if I have no integrity and I'm doing this as a business, knowing that overnight I could just see my channel just disappear, lose all my subscribers, and then while I'm failing, some new kid, Adam Mockler, whatever, 22-year-old guy, come in and willing to lean in on the blue heart stuff more than me, can just take my place? Who do you think is gonna be more desperate? When it's just you got one little channel and you have to fight to get people to find you and stay with you, right? And these guys make a lot of money, but they making $10-20 million a year. So if I'm doing this as a business, if this fails, I'm in trouble, especially if I spent years doing it. On my resume, what have you done for the last 3 years? Oh, I was doing YouTube videos. Like if I try to do YouTube as a business, it doesn't work out for me, and I invest 3 years of my life doing that, how do I get a job? How do I pay my bills? You think I might be a little bit more desperate to be a little bit more biased? A little bit more propaganda, pander to you more, because I'm more exposed, I'm more at risk. I know it's easy to look at it and say, oh, new media is doing so well, getting all those views and whatever. But again, you can't just pop up a new CNN overnight, but you can pop up a new YouTube channel overnight, right? So if you're in this business, some random 14-year-old kid can pop up overnight and put up a channel and whatever, something about his style or whatever it is, or timing or whatever, the algorithm change. Next thing you know, this kid is doubling your views and your subscribers go over there. That's what they're dealing with. CNN, I know they got their own struggles, but again, by default, people have cable, they get in CNN, right? And again, the more important thing is, forget about CNN. When you have hundreds of millions of dollars of net worth, so you don't have to work another day in your life, even if CNN collapses, who cares? You don't need to work. You could chill, live in your mansion for the rest of your life. You could live nice for the rest of your life. You could put a bunch of money in the index fund and live off of just the interest. You got that kind of money. And if you want to, you can do like a Chris Cuomo, start your independent channel, whatever. You're good. You already got name recognition, right? And then when you start the independent channel, you could be more, because that's the thing about independent media. No holds barred. So you're on CNN, you have limitations. They're low, but you got limitations. If CNN collapses, you start a YouTube channel, now there's no limitations. Now you can just be like all the rest of independent media and do whatever you want. Super partisan, super biased, right? Pander, hardcore to your audience. Anything goes. That's what independent media is. Wild West. For-profit media is the problem. It's not independent versus mainstream. It's the profit incentives. And ironically, the folks in left-wing media understand what for-profit does. They understand the damage of capitalism. They think capitalism is evil. I don't agree with them on that, but I realize capitalism can be evil. Capitalism out of control can be evil. So why on earth do these same people who understand this concept don't see a problem with independent for-profit media? This is capitalism. Majority Report, The Young Turks, Brian Tyler Cohen. These are capitalists running capitalist businesses, right? Their survival is based on the product of capitalism. So why on earth would they realize the dangers of capitalism uncontrolled in healthcare, uncontrolled in other areas, but they don't recognize in their own business that they're in that there's a danger of the no accountability nature of independent media? I mean, they so much don't understand it that Cenk embraces it. He said, it's the Wild West. I love it. All these ideas, free ideas. And I don't want to be in the mainstream media prison. Fucking bullshit. This is the Baby Channel. Baby in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. Proof of everything I said in this video. Look at how many likes this video gets and how many views it's gonna get. Not a lot, huh? And if you watch this long, I would venture to say you're probably agreeing with a lot of stuff that I'm saying. I'm opening your eyes. You're relating to what I'm saying, right? And if so, why you didn't get a lot of views? Liked it. Why not a lot of views? Why not a lot of likes? Why do I not gonna get a lot of likes and views? And yet I did it anyway, even though I'm busy as hell. I have a big meeting tomorrow I need to prepare for. Major consequences. But yet I chose to sit here and do this video. I'm not gonna make a dime. And hardly anybody's gonna even see this, right? This is what happens when the media is not profit oriented. I get to be totally honest and tell you the raw truth, because whether you watch or not has no effect on my life. Can't say that for all of for-profit media. And that's independent and mainstream media alike, because the common denominator is that they're both for-profit, and the for-profit incentive is the problem, not whether it's mainstream media or cable. That's irrelevant. If CNN and ABC were not for-profit businesses, they could easily completely demolish all of independent media in producing much more high-quality recordings, much more high-quality content. Because with the resources they have and the talents that they have, whether they choose to use the talents they have or not, if you remove the profit incentive and made their mission to inform us, independent media wouldn't have a chance. And that's the truth.